Welcome to the Girl Means Business podcast. I'm your host, Kendra Swalls. Over the last few years, I have built a business that has allowed me to quit my 9-to-5, spend more time with the ones that I love, and live my dream life. Now, I'm sharing everything I've learned with you. Each week, my guests and I will provide you with helpful advice, actionable tips, and honest conversations. So get ready to take notes and put in the work because this girl means business. Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of the Girl Means Business podcast. I am so excited for today's episode. This is a topic that I could talk about all day long because it is something that is so simple, but it has made such a huge impact in my business. Today, we are talking about the ideal client avatar. You've probably had people ask you, who's your ideal client? Or you may have heard people online talking about their ideal client profile. But what does that really mean? And what does that really look like in your business? So today we're going to cover it all. We're going to talk about why you need an ideal client profile or avatar, how it's going to impact your business, where to even begin when it comes to creating that profile, and then I'm going to go over some of the common questions and concerns that I hear around this topic. So before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit about how creating this ideal client has really impacted my business. So I want to go back a couple of years ago when I was about 2 or 3 years into my business. I was in a place where I was really frustrated and I felt really stuck. I had everything in place I thought I needed. I had a website, I had my social media accounts, I had a blog I was posting to occasionally, but I wasn't getting clients and I couldn't understand what I was doing wrong. And so my first thought was, well, I'm just not getting my information out there. So I started posting to anywhere that I could post to buy, sell, trade groups. I was posting in moms groups. I was sharing it on my personal Facebook page. I even went so far as to post to Craigslist. I feel like that's when you know you may have hit rock bottom in your business is when you're posting to Craigslist. So what happened though is I started getting business. I started getting clients coming to me, but I noticed that they were not anywhere close to the type of clients I wanted for my business. They were bargain shoppers. They were only coming to me because I had lowered my prices and I was offering them pretty much everything plus the kitchen sink for a super low price. And they weren't loyal to my brand. So I knew that the second I raised my prices, the second that someone else came along with a better offer, they were going to be gone. So it was at that point that I started thinking, I've got to do something different. And around that same time, I had signed up for an online course all about business and marketing. And the very first assignment was to create an ideal client profile. She had given us a list of 100 questions to answer to help us create this profile. And I'd kind of skipped over that step in the whole online course steps because I didn't feel like it was anything that I really needed in my business. I didn't understand it. But once I got to this point where I realized I need to make a change, I went back and I really put a lot of energy into understanding the ideal client profile and how it was going to help your business. And what happened is once I created this profile and I had a very clear vision of who I wanted my business to attract, it made the how do I attract them part so much easier. I was no longer just throwing things out there hoping that they would stick to something. I actually had a plan of how to find that ideal client, and that path led me to creating a business that attracts the exact type of client that I want. That's what I want for you. I want you to walk away from this episode with a really clear vision of who your ideal client is and a plan for how you're going to be able to attract that type of client. Okay, so let's start at the beginning with why do you need this and how is it going to impact your business? I want you to think about all of the advertisements you've seen recently, all the stores that you've shopped in, all the websites you've gone to. If you really pay attention, they are all geared towards a very specific client. Take Nike, for example. Their ideal client is a high-performing athlete, someone who is spending daily hours in the gym or on a track or on a field trying to accomplish a goal. They're not trying to attract the couch potato who hasn't done anything in the past 5 years. Their messaging and their branding is all trying to get that high-performing athlete to buy their products. That doesn't mean that that couch potato isn't going to own a Nike sweatshirt or a pair of sweatpants. That just happens to be a byproduct of their messaging. But I guarantee you that when they're sitting around the table trying to figure out how to create their next commercial, they're not thinking about that couch potato. They're thinking about that athlete that is training for some big goal they have in mind. One of the fun byproducts of learning about ideal client profiles is that now you're going to start noticing who each company you work with or that you come across is targeting. I know for me, I can't watch commercials anymore without thinking about who is this company's ideal client. I was watching TV the other day and a Home Depot commercial came on, and my first thought was, I know exactly who they're targeting. They are targeting the working class family who is spending their weekends doing something around the house, whether it's painting a room or building a deck or grilling out in the back porch. Their tagline even says the weekend warrior. So it's so interesting once you understand the mindset of figuring out who your ideal client is, you start really seeing it in all the other things that come in around you. So now that you have a pretty good idea of why this is something you need for your business, let's really dig into how to figure out who your ideal client is. Because that's the ultimate goal here is I want you to understand who your client is so that then you can take everything you're doing in your marketing and gear it towards that person. So I know when you start off, it's very tempting to want to be very vague about your ideal client. You want to make statements like, well, my ideal client is someone who loves fashion, or my ideal client is a bride getting married, or my ideal client is someone who loves to travel. The problem with being that general is that you're still not really attracting a specific type of person. You don't have a single person in mind. And that's the thing with finding your ideal avatar is that you want it to be one person, not a general group of people. So you want to think of it like you're creating a character for a movie. I've even gone so far as to find a photo online, a stock photo of a female who looked like the general description of my ideal client. And I would put that on a bulletin board in my office along with my ideal client profile to remind me that when I'm putting my messaging out there, when I'm posting on social media, when I'm adding something to my blog, that I'm talking to that person. So the first thing I would tell you to do, and this is where you're going to want to grab a pen and paper, the first thing you want to do is come up with a name for your ideal client. Now, you may already know someone who is your ideal client, and if so, feel free to use them as a template or a model. You can use their name, their likeness, details about their life if you want to. This doesn't have to be someone you completely create out of thin air, but if you're just starting out or you haven't had a lot of clients that you would consider your ideal client, this is going to be where you get creative and come up with something completely on your own. So first thing you want to do is give your ideal client a name. This doesn't mean you're going to use her name in your marketing messaging or marketing materials, but it just gives you a more concrete picture in your mind of who this person is. The next thing you want to do is create a physical description of this person. And again, this is where if you want to just go and find a stock image or a photo of a person that you feel like fits your ideal client look, then go ahead and do that and just post it somewhere on your computer or on a bulletin board so that you can see it. I find for me, being a visual person, it helps me to see the actual person in front of me as opposed to just this abstract idea of someone. Now, this next part is where it gets a little bit tricky and time consuming because now you are going to really dive into the finer details of who your ideal client is. And to help you, I have created a list of questions that you can go through and answer to help you create this profile. So if you'll go to the show notes, you'll find a link to the Ideal Client Profile Questionnaire, and you can go in and fill out the questions for yourself. Some of the questions that I ask in there are things like, where does she live? What type of house does she live in? Does she work full-time or is she a stay-at-home mom? Does she have kids? Is she married? What restaurants does she like to go to? Does she like to cook? What does she do for fun in her spare time? If she does work, what type of profession does she have? Does she like to drink? If she does, what's her favorite drink? What's her personality like? So who is she with her friends? How would her friends describe her? What kind of car does she drive? What kind of hobbies does she have? What's her dream vacation? What's the last book that she read? You can see that I'm getting into really specific details, and you might be asking yourself, why? Why is that important? Why does it matter the last book that she read? And the reason it matters is because you want your ideal client to feel a connection with you and your brand. So when you're posting to social media and you're talking about the books that you've read or book recommendations or travel ideas or places you've been or places you want to go, you want it to have the same ideas, the same voice, the same feel as what your ideal client might be thinking or posting about on her social media pages. Now, at this point, if you're thinking, well, I don't really know what my ideal client likes or does or thinks or how they act, this is the point where you need to really look at the people that you're working with and look at the people that you are friends with and try to figure out, where does your ideal client fit in there? And one of the great things about social media, as much as we all have a love-hate relationship with it, I'm sure, is that it's a really great place to go and get information about people. So if you are unsure about your ideal client or how to answer a question, go to Instagram, go to Facebook, go to Snapchat or Pinterest or wherever you're spending your time, and start looking at other people's profiles and look at the things that they are talking about. Look at the things that they're sharing online. Look at the way that they're talking about, just the phrases they use, the terminology they use, the slang that they use. Look at the hashtags and emojis and the emotions they're trying to evoke. You know, if your ideal client is someone who is really into social issues and they are constantly sharing news articles or they're talking about injustice in the world and the different charities that they're working with, then you know that you need to put that into your ideal client profile as something that that person values, because that's something that the people you are trying to spend your time with and you're targeting your business towards are interested in. This is one of the times when Pinterest can be your best friend. So if you have someone in mind or a couple people in mind that could be an example of your ideal client, go check out their Pinterest profile. See what types of things that they're pinning, and then maybe even create a secret board on your Pinterest account where you pin the same things that they're pinning to kind of create a mood board or a vision board of your ideal client. Pinterest can be great for this because you're seeing the areas that they are thinking about the most, the vacations they want to go on, the meals they want to fix, the diet plan they want to try, the outfits that they want to pin and shop for, all the things that they might be thinking about but aren't all necessarily posting about on Instagram or Facebook. So essentially what I'm telling you to do is go stalk a bunch of people online, all in the name of research for your business. I mean, that's fair, right? Once you have finished your research, then it's time to create a ideal client profile around everything you have discovered about your ideal client. So I've created one as an example for a online boutique who is geared towards comfort and cute styles for moms. So this is the ideal client profile I came up for them. Sarah is a 32-year-old stay-at-home mom of 2 young kids. She used to have a corporate job, but made the decision to stay home because she values the time that she gets to spend with her family and knows that time is fleeting with her young children. Her husband works in finance, and they live in a modest home in a suburb of a larger city. Now, side note, in this case, I would put in a very specific location based on where you live. So make sure you're getting specific as far as the neighborhood and the location of the areas you want your clients to be in. Okay, she spends her days scheduling play dates with other moms, taking kids to the museum or park, while balancing all the housework as well. She doesn't love to cook, but in order to save money, they try not to eat out too often. And since staying home, her fashion has kind of taken a back seat to comfort, but she still wants to look put together, and she loves to dress up a little more for her date nights with her husband. Her friends would describe her as sassy, fun, outgoing, and loving, and she values relationships and does her best to schedule in time with her girlfriends when she can. Now let's talk about how that ideal client profile could help a boutique owner attract that type of client, how they can use that in all of their marketing. So for example, if you are an online boutique owner and you are posting to Instagram on a regular basis, these are the types of things that you could post about. You could talk about your own children. You could talk about the idea that you want to look nice but still be comfortable because you're out chasing a toddler around all day. Or you could talk about how to go from a daytime look to a date night look very quickly. You could share how your outfits are going to hold up to the idea of chasing kids around a park all day. You could talk about the different ways that your clothing is going to help her feel more like the old version of herself that she was before she was a stay-at-home mom. So your messaging is now being directed at Sarah as opposed to the masses. So the more detail you have in your ideal client profile, the more topics you have to incorporate into your marketing messaging. So the more you know about that person that you are trying to attract, the more information and content it's going to give you within your business. So by now, you should have a better understanding of why an ideal client profile is beneficial to your business. I've given you tools to go and create your own ideal client profile. And we've talked a little bit about how you can use that profile to create your marketing message for your business. And we'll dive into that a whole lot more when we get into other episodes that deal with social media and putting content out there for your clients. So now I want to address some of the common questions I hear when it comes to creating your ideal client profile. And one of the questions I hear a lot is, will this eliminate people from my business? And I think that that's a fear a lot of people have, is that if you get too specific with your ideal client, that you're going to eliminate people out of your business. And I don't think that's necessarily true. Jasmine Star has a saying that I love, and she says that you want your business to either attract or repel people. If you're not attracting or repelling, then you're somewhere in that middle gray zone, and nobody pays attention to the gray zone. If you go and you look at the different companies that you are paying attention to, most of them are either attracting a certain type of client or repelling a different type of client. So if we go back to that Nike example, Nike is attracting the high-performing athlete, the person who wants to achieve an athletic goal of some kind, and they are repelling that couch potato client who hasn't exercised in several years. So it's very clear in their messaging who they're attracting and who they are repelling. So you want your brand to do the same. You want to attract a certain type of client and repel another kind. So in the case of the boutique owner we talked about a minute ago, her marketing messaging is going to attract that mom who wants to feel fashionable and look good while chasing their toddler around. And their messaging is going to repel all of the women who are working in corporate America and having to wear designer suits and outfits and high heels on a regular basis. Now, that doesn't mean that because you are attracting one and repelling another, that the people you're repelling aren't going to be clients of yours at some point. There is definitely room for crossover. So if we go back to that Nike example again, that couch potato is still going to have the opportunity to purchase Nike apparel. I personally am not, by any stretch of the imagination, an athlete. However, I own Nike products. I have a Nike sports bra. I have a pair of Nike sweatpants. I have Nike shoes. So the fear that when you create this ideal client profile, you are going to exclude someone from working with your business is not really something to worry about. Because if your messaging is on point, then there's going to be bits and pieces of your ideal client that are going to resonate with other people. So while I may not fit that ideal client perfectly, there are bits and pieces of the Nike brand that still appeal to me. Whether it happens to be that I want to be comfortable in my clothes, or I want shoes that are going to last a long time, whatever it might be. When you look at that ideal client profile for the boutique, there are going to be aspects of that profile that other women are going to resonate with, whether it's the fact they want to look good for a date night with their husband, or they want to be comfortable but still look cute on the weekends when they go out with their girlfriends. So while you're still targeting a very specific ideal client, you're not necessarily excluding everybody else permanently. They are going to filter in because there's going to be parts of your messaging that they can relate to themselves. The next question I get is pretty much tied with the first question for the question I hear the most often. And that is, what if I am nothing like my ideal client? How can I create an ideal client profile for someone who is very different than me? And my question back to you would be, why is your ideal client so different from you? Because if you have created a brand and a business around something that you love, there's a pretty good chance that the people that you are attracting are going to love and value that as well. So yes, while there are going to be parts of your ideal client that you may not relate to or have in common, there should be some common thread that ties you together. Your job is to figure out what that common thread is and really expound on that in your messaging, because that's something that you are going to be able to relate to, because you want to be able to have your messaging feel authentic. And if you are trying too hard to reach out to somebody that you are not comfortable around or you don't have a connection with, it's going to sound forced and it's going to sound fake. So really look for the ways that you and your ideal client are similar so that you can start there and build a foundation and then find ways to reach them in the areas that you maybe aren't as comfortable or connected to them in. The next question I hear is a common one as well, and that is, can I have more than one ideal client? Absolutely. So if your business has multiple branches or has different products that you offer, you're probably going to have a different client, ideal client for each of those products or services. So if you are a photographer and you offer wedding photography and then maybe family photography, you're going to be attracting two different types of clients. Now, your wedding client may eventually turn into a family client, but you're going to be attracting them in different ways. So the way I would suggest setting this up is to figure out what the different areas of your business are that you need different client profiles for. Then sit down and create an ideal client profile for each of those areas. Then if you're using one platform to market all of these, such as Instagram or Facebook or your website or your blog, figure out how you can create a marketing plan, which we'll get into in future episodes, to reach all of those clients. So in the case of my photography business, I have different days that I market different ideal client profiles. So if I'm marketing to my brides, then on Wednesdays, I'm marketing specifically to my brides and I'm talking about things that are going to relate to them. And then maybe on Thursday, I'm marketing to my boudoir clients and I'm speaking about things in a manner that's going to relate to them. But what I would also encourage you to do is, if your business is segmented like that and you're trying to come up with multiple ideal client profiles, is then also find the things that connect all the different client profiles that you have and create maybe a more general client profile that covers your entire brand. So that way there's still this connectivity, there's still this kind of overarching theme that runs through all of your messaging and it's very cohesive, but you also have your little branches off of the main tree that are specific to that service or product. So the last question I'm going to cover is, can my ideal client change over time if my business changes? Absolutely. If there was a way, and I'm sure there is with the internet, to go back and look at, again, going back to Nike, to go back and look at their marketing from 10 or 15, 20 years ago, you're probably going to see that their marketing has evolved and their ideal client has evolved as well, because they have been able to focus in over time more specific things and narrow down their ideal client and narrow down the products they're offering and the services they're offering and the way they're presenting it. It's almost like you are chiseling away every time you come back to this profile to figure out, okay, this is what's working, this is not working, or maybe my ideal client profile has changed a little bit because this type of profile isn't really working for what I'm doing, or my brand has evolved and now I'm focusing more on this. So now my client profile is going to change to look more like this. So don't feel like by creating this client profile, you are stuck there forever. This is not a permanent thing. Just like we as humans evolve over time, we change, our personality changes, the way we think and the way we do things will change with the environment and the things that happen to us in our lives. The same thing's going to happen to your brand, your business, and your ideal clients. So yes, it can evolve with you as your business evolves as well. Okay, wow. I feel like this was a lot of information today. I hope I didn't overwhelm you. I hope this is all things that you were able to now go and sit down and really look at and create that client profile for your business. So you have the questionnaire that I'm posting in the show notes that you can go and download and use as a template to sort of help get you started on the right track to creating your ideal client profile. If you already know who your ideal client is, that's great. I hope this will allow you to kind of go in and maybe tweak it a little bit, or encourage you to go and just sort of make sure that it's exactly the client that you want to be reaching out to. And then look at how you're using that client profile to impact your marketing and your branding that you're putting out there into the world. So all of your social media content, all of your website content, your blog content, everything needs to be geared towards that one client. So make sure that you are considering that when you're planning out the content that you're posting online. All right, so now it's time to move on to our listener lounge question for this week. And our question this week comes from Mandy, and let's hear what she has to say.
My question would be, what if you have a spouse or significant other that doesn't exactly support your new business? They're just not as excited about the business. They aren't, on fire like I am, or, somebody else who's in this situation. They're not as excited about the business.
That is a great question. And it's one that I've actually considered doing an entire episode on, because I think this is something a lot of people deal with. And I know a lot of my friends, especially, have struggled with their significant other or family members or friends not really understanding what they do and thinking that, oh, it's just something fun that they're doing. And I know the frustration that that holds, because I know that for me personally, when I quit my teaching job, a lot of my friends just thought I was just quitting to stay home. They didn't understand I was quitting to run a business. And yes, I'm running my business from home, but it's still a business. And so my advice would be, have a conversation with that person. Sit down and just go to dinner, no kids, no distractions, and really have a conversation about what it is that you want from your business, and ask them questions. What is it that makes you think that this is not something more than it is? Why do you think this is just a hobby? Do you have concerns? Do you have questions? Do you want to know more about what goes on in the inner workings of my business? Will that help you see it as something more? I think having those types of conversations can really help. And I think that a lot of times the frustration comes from the fact that there's lack of communication there, whether it's that obviously if you've got kids, it's hard to have those conversations when your whole day revolves around taking care of the kids. And then once they're in bed, you just want to relax and watch TV. So getting away and really focusing on making sure that y'all are having these honest, open conversations can really help sort of alleviate that. And if they still don't quite see it or they don't get it, I take that as motivation. I look at it and I think, okay, well, you don't think I can do this, or you don't think this is more than just a hobby. Well, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you how much more this can be. And that can be a real driving force. That can be really powerful motivation for you to go out and make your business everything you can make it be, as I'm going to show you, I'm going to prove you wrong kind of thing. And I know that's not always the best route, because that shouldn't be your only motivation. But I do think that there is something to I'm going to prove to you that this is more than what you think it is, that can really put a fire under you. So, Mandy, my advice again is just go and have a conversation with your spouse. Make sure y'all are free from distractions, out of the house, away from kids, and just ask the questions. Don't get defensive. Don't get upset. Just really have an open, honest conversation. Explain to him what it is that you're wanting to do. and figure out why he has his hesitations or his concerns about it. And then again, use it as motivation to just prove him wrong and show him exactly what you can do with this business. So Mandy, I hope that helps. I know that's so frustrating. It's so hard when your significant other doesn't quite get the passion and excitement you have for something. So let us know how it goes. Keep me posted, and good luck. All right, ladies, that's it for this week. Thank you again so much for tuning in. I hope you found it helpful. Head over to the Girl Means Business Facebook page and share your ideal client profiles with us. If you need help or you have questions and you want us to help you with creating or defining your ideal client profile, let us know. I would love to help you with that. So I hope you'll tune in again next week for our next episode. Until then, keep chasing those dreams. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to click the subscribe button so you never miss when a new episode goes live. Then head over to iTunes and leave a quick review to let other people know just how much you loved it. Thanks, ladies. See you next week.